Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the stars drift past on the main screen. The ship hummed quietly as it moved through space near the Kepler 442 system. Jake had been doing this job for 12 years now, exploring new worlds and looking for resources that human colonies needed. It was peaceful work, most of the time. "Captain, I'm getting something strange on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, and she had been monitoring alien frequencies for the past 3 hours. Her face looked worried as she adjusted the controls. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" "It's an encrypted transmission, sir. High-level encryption, but it's not from any human source. The signal is coming from the direction of the Zephyrian territories." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her keyboard. "I think I can break part of it." The Zephyrians were one of the older species in the galaxy. They had been around for thousands of years and were part of the Galactic Council that kept peace between different alien races. Humans had joined the Council 50 years ago, but they were still considered newcomers by most of the older species. "Put it on speaker," Jake said. Static filled the bridge for a moment. Then words began to come through in the harsh Zephyrian language. Dr. Alan Pierce, the ship's expert on alien languages, looked up from his workstation. "Captain, I need to hear more of this," Alan said, moving quickly to Amy's station. "This doesn't sound like normal Zephyrian communication." Amy worked on the signal for another 10 minutes while the bridge crew waited. Finally, she looked up. With a pale face, "I've got about 60% of it decoded, sir. Dr. Pierce, you need to hear this." Alan put on the headphones and listened carefully. His face grew more worried with each passing second. After 5 minutes, he pulled off the headphones and looked at Jake. "Captain, this is a military communication. It's from the Zephyrian High Command to their fleet commanders." Alan's voice was shaking. "They're talking about something called the final cleansing." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "They're planning to wipe out younger species in the galaxy, the ones they call genetically inferior." Alan sat down heavily in his chair. Humans are at the top of their list. The bridge went completely silent. Navigator Lisa Webb looked up from her charts. "Sir, are you sure about this?" "I'm sure," Alan said. "They've already done it to 17 other species over the past century. Made it look like natural disasters or civil wars. No one knew it was murder." Jake felt his stomach drop. "How long do we have?" 2 solar cycles, Alan said. "Less than 18 months. Amy was still working on the transmission. "Captain, there's more. They're talking about human colonies. They have the coordinates of all our settlements." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had been with him for years. They trusted him to make the right decisions, but this was bigger than anything he had ever faced. "Lisa, plot a course for Earth, maximum speed," Jake ordered. "Amy, keep working on that transmission. I want everything we can get." "Sir, that will take us through 3 different alien territories," Lisa said. "We'll have to break radio silence to get clearance." "No clearance," Jake said firmly. "We go dark and we go fast. If the Zephyrians are monitoring communications, we can't risk them knowing what we found." Dr. Pierce was reading through the decoded parts of the message. "Captain, this is worse than I thought. They've been planning this for decades. They've been keeping younger species from developing advanced weapons while they built up their own forces." "What kind of weapons?" Jake asked. "Energy shields, plasma cannons, things like that. But they made sure no one else could get the technology. They've been positioning themselves as peacekeepers while secretly preparing for genocide." Amy looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm picking up massive fleet movements in the Proxima Centauri system. That's close to our colonies." Jake felt his blood run cold. Proxima Centauri was humanity's nearest neighbor. If the Zephyrians were moving fleets there, it meant they were already starting their preparations. "How massive?" he asked. "At least 200 ships, sir." "Maybe more. They're using some kind of stealth technology, but I can detect their engine signatures." Jake made his decision. "Lisa, change course. We're going to Earth by the fastest route." Possible. I don't care if we have to go through alien space. Sir, that could start a war, Lisa said. There's already going to be a war, Jake replied. The question is whether humanity will be ready for it. The UES Horizon changed course and accelerated toward Earth in the communications room. Amy continued working on the alien transmission. Every few minutes, she would decode another section and pass it to Dr. Pierce. Each new piece of information made the situation look worse. Captain, they're not just planning to kill us, Alan said after reading the latest section. They want to study us first. They think humans have some kind of unusual genetic traits that make us dangerous. What kind of traits? Jake asked. Adaptability, creativity, something they call tactical unpredictability. They've been watching human military history, and they're worried about our ability to fight. Jake almost laughed. They're worried about us? We don't even have weapons that can match their technology. Maybe not, Alan said. But according to this, they think we're the most dangerous species they've ever encountered. They want to eliminate us before we become a real threat. The ship continued its journey toward Earth while the crew worked around the clock to decode more of the transmission. What they found painted a picture of a galaxy where the older species had been secretly controlling everything for centuries. Captain, Amy said during one of their decoding sessions, I found something about the other species they killed. The Andorians, the Caliph, the Proxians. All of them were developing new technologies when they were eliminated. What kind of technologies? Jake asked. Artificial intelligence, advanced metallurgy, new forms of energy. Things that might have challenged Zephyrian dominance. Jake realized they were carrying the most dangerous information in human history. If the Zephyrians knew that humans had discovered their plan, they might accelerate their timeline. How much longer until we reach Earth? He asked Lisa. 36 hours at current speed, sir. Jake looked at the decoded transmission one more time. The coordinates of human colonies were all there, along with detailed plans for their destruction. The Zephyrians had been watching humanity for decades, waiting for the right moment to strike. Amy, send a coded message to Earth. Tell them. We have urgent information about alien activity. Don't mention what we found. Just tell them we need to speak to the highest levels of government immediately. Yes, sir. As the UES Horizon raced through space toward Earth, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were too late. The Zephyrians had been planning this for so long, and humanity had no idea what was coming, but maybe, just maybe, they could still warn their people in time. President Helen Brooks sat in the emergency meeting room deep beneath the Capitol building on Earth. The walls were thick steel, and the room had no windows. This was where the government met when the world was in danger. Around the table sat the most powerful people in human space, and all of them looked worried. Meryl Frank Miller stood at the front of the room with a holographic display showing the alien transmission. He had been studying the decoded message for 6 hours since Captain Morrison's ship arrived. His face was grim as he looked at the assembled leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to hear will change everything, Admiral Miller said. The Zephyrians have been planning to wipe out humanity for decades. They see us as a threat to their control of the galaxy. The room erupted in angry voices. Some people shouted that it had to be a mistake. Others demanded immediate action. President Brooks raised her hand for silence. How certain are we that this transmission is real? She asked. Dr. Kevin Stone, the head of the Terran Defense Initiative, stood up. We've verified it through 3 different sources, Madam President. The encryption matches known Zephyrian military codes. The language patterns are consistent with their high command. This is real. President Brooks felt the weight of leadership on her shoulders. Dr. Stone, what are our options? That depends on what weapons we have available, Dr. Stone replied. For the past 20 years, we've been secretly developing technologies that violate galactic treaties. We kept them hidden because we thought the treaties were about peace. Now we know they were about keeping us weak. General Patricia Young leaned forward in her chair. What kind of weapons are we talking about? Kinetic weapons, nuclear technology, and artificial intelligence? Dr. Stone said. While other species focused on energy shields and plasma weapons, we continued developing the things that made us successful on Earth. The room fell silent. Everyone knew that AI development was banned by galactic law. Any species caught creating artificial intelligence would face punishment from the Galactic Council. How advanced is our AI program? President Brooks asked. We call it Atlas, Dr. Stone said. It's been running in secret for 5 years. The AI can analyze alien technologies faster than any human team. It's already found weaknesses in Zephyrian ship designs. Admiral Miller activated the holographic display. Atlas has been studying every piece of alien technology we've ever encountered. It discovered that Zephyrian shields are vulnerable to rapid kinetic impacts. Their ships can stop energy weapons, but they can't handle old-fashioned bullets traveling at high speed. General Young smiled for the first time since the meeting began. So our primitive weapons are actually better than their advanced ones? In some ways, yes, Dr. Stone replied. They've become so dependent on energy-based technology that they forgot about the simple effectiveness of kinetic weapons. President Brooks stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of the city where millions of people lived normal lives. They had no idea that their entire species was about to be eliminated. What about our military strength? She asked. How many ships do we have? Admiral Miller pulled up another display. We have 300 combat-ready vessels across all human colonies. The Zephyrians have over 10,000 ships in their fleet. Those odds don't look good, General Young said. The numbers don't tell the whole story, Admiral Miller replied. Atlas has been analyzing Zephyrian military tactics for months. They rely on predictable strategies because they've never faced serious opposition. They expect their enemies to fight like other alien species. Dr. Stone activated his tablet and shared new information with the group. We've also discovered something interesting about the Zephyrians themselves. They've been genetically enhanced for thousands of years. They're stronger and smarter than baseline humans, but they've lost something important. What did they lose? President Brooks asked. The ability to adapt quickly, Dr. Stone said. Their enhanced brains are very good at complex calculations, but they're terrible at creative thinking. They can't handle unexpected situations. Captain Nick Davis, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. I've been running covert operations in alien space for 3 years. The Zephyrians follow the same patterns every time. They use the same patrol routes, the same communication protocols, the same supply lines. They're predictable. Admiral Miller nodded. That's our advantage. We're unpredictable. We change our tactics based on the situation. We use whatever weapons work best, not just the ones that look impressive. President Brooks returned to her seat. How long do we have to prepare? Less than 18 months, Admiral Miller said. But we have assets they don't know about. Project Prometheus has been building hidden weapon factories throughout human space. We can arm our people faster than they expect. General Young pulled up a map of human colonies. We need to start training civilians for combat. Every person who can hold a weapon needs to be ready to fight. What about our allies? President Brooks asked, Are there other species who might help us? Captain Davis leaned forward. There are several younger species who hate the Zephyrians. They've been oppressed for centuries, but they've never had anyone willing to lead a rebellion. If we show strength, they might join us. Dr. Stone activated Atlas through his tablet. The AIS voice filled the room, speaking in calm, measured tones. I have analyzed the political situation throughout the galaxy. 47 species have grievances against the Zephyrians. 23 of those species have significant military capabilities. If humanity can demonstrate successful resistance, we could build a coalition. How do we demonstrate successful resistance against a superior force? General Young asked. By using our advantages, Atlas replied. Humans excel at asymmetric warfare. You use terrain, deception, and superior tactics to overcome numerical disadvantages. The Zephyrians have no experience with these methods. Admiral Miller stood up again. We need to activate every secret project we have. The weapon factories, the AI systems, the hidden bases. We also need to start modifying civilian ships for combat. What about the Galactic Council? President Brooks asked. Won't they intervene? The Galactic Council is controlled by the Zephyrians, Captain Davis replied. They've been manipulating galactic politics for centuries. We can't count on help from official sources. Dr. Stone looked at his notes. We have one major advantage that the Zephyrians don't know about. Our population is much more militant than other species. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to organize resistance movements. What do you mean? President Brooks asked. Other species achieved peace early in their development, Dr. Stone explained. They stopped fighting wars and focused on technology and philosophy. Humans kept fighting until we reached the stars. We're the only species in the galaxy that understands modern warfare. Atlas spoke again. I have been analyzing human military history. Your species has developed more effective combat tactics than any other known civilization. The Zephyrians study war as an academic subject. Humans practice it as an art form. General Young smiled grimly. So they're about to find out what happens when you pick a fight with a species that's actually good at fighting. Exactly, Admiral Miller said. They think they're dealing with another peaceful species like the ones they've eliminated before. They have no idea what's coming. President Brooks looked around the room at her advisors. Gentlemen, we're about to fight for the survival of our species. We have 18 months to prepare for the most important war in human history. Are we ready to do whatever it takes to win? Everyone in the room nodded. They knew that failure meant extinction for humanity, but they also knew that humans had survived worse odds before. Then let's wake up the sleeping giant, President Brooks said. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of. Commander Rita Bell stood in the control room of Mining Station Alpha 7, watching her engineers work frantically to convert the asteroid facility into a weapons factory. The station had been mining rare metals for 15 years, but now those same metals would be used to build weapons that could pierce alien armor. How long until the first production line is ready? Rita asked her chief engineer, Paul Clark. Paul wiped sweat from his forehead as he looked at the massive machinery being installed. 72 hours, Commander. We're retrofitting the ore processors to manufacture kinetic projectiles. The mining equipment is perfect for this kind of work. Rita nodded and walked to the observation window that looked out into space. She could see other asteroids in the distance, each one being converted into a hidden weapons facility. Humanity had been mining asteroids for decades, building an infrastructure that the aliens never suspected could be militarized. What about the other stations? She asked. Station Beta 3 is already producing armor-piercing rounds, Paul replied. Station Gamma 12 is working on guided projectiles. We're using the same technology that guides mining drones to create smart bullets that can track alien ships. Dr. Susan Hayes looked up from her work table where she was testing new metal alloys. Commander, I've got good news about the armor penetration tests. The new alloy can punch through Zephyrian hull plating like it's made of paper. How is that possible? Rita asked. The aliens use a crystalline structure in their armor, Susan explained. It's very good at absorbing energy weapons, but it's brittle when hit by high-velocity solid objects. Our kinetic weapons will go right through their defenses. Tony Martinez, the station's weapons specialist, joined the conversation. I've been working on guidance systems for our projectiles. The aliens use predictable evasion patterns because their ships are so large. We can program our weapons to anticipate their movements. Rita felt a surge of hope. When the government had first announced the alien threat, she had been terrified. How could humanity fight against a species with thousands of years of technological advancement? But now she was beginning to understand that technology wasn't everything. What about production capacity? She asked Paul. We can produce 50,000 rounds per day once all the production lines are running, Paul said. That's just from this one station. We have 47 similar facilities being converted throughout human space. 50,000 rounds per day, Rita repeated. That's over 2 million rounds per month from all our stations combined. Tony smiled grimly. The aliens have never faced that kind of sustained firepower. Their ships are built for fighting other energy weapon users who have to worry about power consumption and cooling systems. They're not designed to handle continuous kinetic bombardment. Captain Greg Turner arrived at the station aboard a converted cargo ship that would serve as a training vessel. He was leading the effort to teach human pilots how to fight against superior alien technology. "Commander Bell," Greg said as he entered the control room, "we need to talk about combat tactics." Rita led him to a secure briefing room where they could speak privately. "What have you learned from the training exercises?" "The aliens fight like they're playing a game with rules," Greg replied. "They line up their ships in formation, they announce their intentions, they give warnings before attacking. They're fighting like gentlemen." "And humans don't fight like gentlemen?" Rita asked. "Hell no," Greg said with a laugh. "We fight to win. We use ambush tactics, we attack from behind cover, we use the environment as a weapon. I've been training pilots to hide in asteroid fields and debris clouds, then attack when the aliens get close." Greg activated a holographic display showing a simulated battle. "Watch this." The alien ships approach in a standard formation. They're scanning for energy signatures because that's what they expect to find. But our ships are powered down, drifting like dead rocks. The simulation showed human ships suddenly coming to life and opening fire on the alien formation. The aliens tried to respond, but they were caught completely off guard. "They can't adapt quickly enough," Greg continued. "By the time they realize what's happening, half their ships are already damaged or destroyed." Rita watched the simulation with growing excitement. "How many pilots have you trained so far?" 300, with more arriving every day," Greg said. "We're also training civilian pilots. Every cargo hauler, every mining ship, every transport vessel can be converted into a potential warship." Meanwhile, in a hidden facility on the moon, Intelligence Officer Linda Johnson was coordinating with alien species who had been oppressed by the Zephyrians for centuries. Her secure communication room was filled with screens showing contacts throughout the galaxy. "The Altarians are willing to provide intelligence on Zephyrian fleet movements," Linda reported to her supervisor. "They hate the Zephyrians, but they're too weak to fight alone. They're waiting to see if we can actually hurt the enemy." Her supervisor, Director James Cole, leaned back in his chair. "What about the other species?" "The vegans have been secretly developing weapons in violation of galactic law," Linda said. "They're willing to share the technology if we can prove we're serious about fighting. The Centaurians have been mapping Zephyrian supply lines for years. They're ready to help us target the enemy's weak points." "That's promising," James said. "But we need to be careful. If the Zephyrians discover that other species are helping us, they might accelerate their timeline." Linda nodded. "I've been thinking about that. What if we use that to our advantage? If we can make the Zephyrians think there's a galaxy-wide rebellion forming, they might panic and make mistakes." "Explain," James said. "The Zephyrians have controlled the galaxy through fear and manipulation for centuries," Linda explained. "They've never faced a real military threat. If we can convince them that multiple species are working together against them, their whole strategy falls apart." Back at the asteroid mining station, Rita received a priority message from Earth. The message was from Admiral Miller, and it contained new intelligence about Zephyrian fleet movements. "Commander Bell," the message said, "we've detected major Zephyrian fleet buildups in 3 sectors. They're moving faster than we expected. We need to accelerate all production schedules." Rita called an emergency meeting of her senior staff. "People, we just got word that the aliens are moving up their timeline. We need to double our production capacity in the next month." Paul looked at his engineering reports. "Commander, we're already running the equipment at maximum capacity. If we push it harder, we risk breakdowns." "Then we build more equipment," Rita said firmly. "Strip every piece of machinery from the civilian mining operations. Convert everything to weapons production. We'll worry about mining or after we win." The war, Dr. Hayes looked up from her alloy testing. Commander, I've been working on something that might help. Instead of just building bullets, we can build smart bullets. Each projectile can carry a small guidance system and a tiny warhead. How small? Rita asked. Small enough to fit in a standard kinetic round, but powerful enough to punch through. Bulkheads once it's inside an alien ship, Susan replied. We can turn every bullet into a miniature missile. Tony Martinez's eyes lit up. If we can do that, we can target specific systems on alien ships. Instead of just punching holes in their hulls, we can take out their engines, their weapons, their life support systems. Rita felt the pieces coming together. Humanity was preparing for war in a way that no alien species had ever seen. They were using industrial capacity, tactical flexibility, and technological innovation in ways that the Zephyrians couldn't anticipate. How long until the first batch of smart bullets is ready? She asked. 2 weeks, Susan replied. Maybe less if we can get more rare earth metals from the other mining stations. Make it happen, Rita said. Send requests to every mining facility in human space. Tell them we need everything they can give us. As the meeting broke up, Rita walked back to the observation window. In the distance, she could see cargo ships arriving with more equipment and materials. The entire human industrial base was being converted for war, and it was happening faster than anyone had thought possible. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They had assumed that humanity would react like other species, with panic, confusion, and eventual surrender. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping in human civilization for decades. They had awakened the war machine that had conquered Earth. The war began at dawn on the human colony of New Geneva. Captain Eric Lewis watched from the command bunker as massive Zephyrian ships appeared in the sky above the settlement. The alien vessels were beautiful in a terrifying way, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the morning light as they descended toward the planet. All units, this is command, Eric spoke into his radio. Remember the plan, let them get close. Wait for my signal. Around the colony, thousands of human defenders lay hidden. In trenches, caves, and underground bunkers. They had been preparing for this moment for months, turning their peaceful settlement into a fortress that the aliens couldn't see. The Zephyrian ships opened fire with their energy weapons, targeting the colony's power plant and communications tower. Bright beams of plasma struck the buildings, causing massive explosions. To the aliens, it looked like a successful attack on a defenseless human settlement. They're taking the bait, Eric said to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. They think we're just another easy target. The alien ships moved closer to the colony, preparing to land troops for the final assault. This was exactly what the humans had been waiting for. All units, open fire. Eric commanded. The ground around the colony erupted with gunfire as thousands of hidden weapons opened up on the alien ships. Kinetic projectiles streaked through the air, striking the Zephyrian vessels with devastating effect. The aliens' energy shields, designed to stop plasma weapons, were useless against the solid metal bullets. Direct hit on the lead ship, Sarah reported. Their shields aren't stopping our rounds. The first Zephyrian vessel spun out of control and crashed into the forest outside the colony. The other ships tried to retreat, but human fighters hidden in the asteroid belt around the planet attacked them from behind. This is Eagle Squadron, came the voice of Captain Lisa Park over the radio. We're hitting them from the rear. They didn't expect us to be waiting out here. The space battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zephyrians tried to use their traditional tactics, forming neat battle lines and engaging in formal combat. The humans ignored all the rules of civilized warfare and attacked from every direction at once. Target their engines, Lisa commanded her squadron. Don't let any of them escape. The human fighters were smaller and faster than the alien ships, darting between the massive Zephyrian vessels like angry wasps. They used the asteroid belt as cover, hiding behind rocks and debris before launching surprise attacks. Meanwhile, in the Kepler 438 system, Admiral Karen White was commanding the largest human fleet ever assembled. Her ships were hidden throughout the system, waiting for the Zephyrian main force to arrive. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting the enemy fleet, reported her tactical officer, Commander Bill Hayes. 200 ships, approaching in standard formation, Karen smiled grimly. The Zephyrians were doing exactly what human intelligence had predicted. They were following their standard operating procedures, which made them predictable and vulnerable. All ships maintain radio silence, Karen ordered. Wait until they're in the gravity well before we reveal ourselves. The Zephyrian fleet entered the system with confidence, expecting to find a few human ships that they could easily destroy. Instead, they found empty space and a few automated distress beacons broadcasting from the planet below. They're falling. For it, Karen said to her staff. They think we've already evacuated. The alien ships moved deeper into the system, heading for the planet where they expected to find fleeing human refugees. As they approached the gravity well around the star, Karen gave the order that would change galactic history. All units, execute Operation Hammer, she commanded. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, moons, and space stations throughout the system. They had been waiting in complete silence, their engines powered down and their weapons charged. The Zephyrians found themselves surrounded by enemies they hadn't even known were there. Open fire with everything we have, Karen ordered. The humans didn't use the polite rules of engagement that other species followed. They didn't announce their intentions or give warnings. They simply opened fire with every weapon they had, targeting the alien ships with coordinated precision. The first wave of kinetic projectiles struck the Zephyrian fleet before they could react. The aliens' energy shields flickered and failed under the impact of thousands of solid metal rounds traveling at incredible speeds. Direct hits across the enemy formation, Commander Hayes reported. Their shields are down on at least 30 ships. Second wave, target their weapon systems, Karen ordered. I want them disabled, not destroyed. The human fleet had been practicing this kind of coordinated attack for months. Every ship knew its role, every captain understood the plan. They moved like a single organism, striking the enemy from multiple directions simultaneously. The Zephyrians tried to respond, but their weapons were designed for long-range energy duels between individual ships. They had no experience with the kind of close-quarters, multi-vector assault that the humans were using. Admiral, we're receiving a surrender signal from the enemy flagship, Commander Hayes reported. Karen was surprised. She had expected the battle to last much longer. Are you sure? Yes, ma'am. They're requesting terms of surrender. Karen looked at the tactical display showing the devastation in the Zephyrian fleet. More than half their ships were disabled or destroyed, and the rest were trapped in the gravity well with no way to escape. Tell them they can surrender unconditionally or we'll continue the attack, Karen said. No negotiations. On the planet below, Lieutenant Colonel Joe Murphy was leading human ground forces against Zephyrian troops who had managed to land before the space battle began. The alien soldiers were tall and graceful, with enhanced physical abilities that made them stronger and faster than humans, but they had never faced human infantry tactics. Squad 3, flank left, Joe ordered over his radio. Squad 7, lay down suppressing fire. Squad 2, prepare the explosives. The human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, using cover and concealment to avoid the aliens' energy weapons. They had been trained by veterans who understood that superior firepower meant nothing if you couldn't hit your target. Contact left, shouted Sergeant Mike Chun as a group of alien soldiers appeared from behind a building. They're trying to reach the landing zone. Joe watched as his soldiers executed a textbook ambush. They waited until the aliens were in the open, then attacked from 3 different directions at once. The Zephyrians, despite their enhanced abilities, were caught completely off guard. They don't know how to fight in an urban environment, Joe said to his radio operator. They're used to fighting in open space where their superior range gives them an advantage. The battle on the ground was over in less than an hour. The surviving Zephyrian soldiers surrendered after realizing that their tactical training was useless against human guerrilla warfare back in space. Admiral Karen White was receiving reports from human fleets throughout the galaxy. The first day of the war had been a complete success. Every Zephyrian attack had been repelled, and dozens of alien ships had been captured or destroyed. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the other sectors," Commander Hayes said. "The enemy is retreating on all fronts." Karen couldn't believe it. They had expected to fight a long, desperate war against a superior enemy. Instead, they had achieved total victory in less than 24 hours. How is that possible? She asked. "Atlas has been analyzing the battle data," Hayes replied. "The AI says the Zephyrians have been fighting the same way for thousands of years. They've never had to adapt their tactics because they've never faced serious resistance." Karen realized that humanity had just proven something that would shock the entire galaxy. The most advanced species in known space had been defeated by the newcomers everyone had dismissed as primitive. "Send a message to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them the first phase of the war is complete. We're ready to move to the next phase." The message that went out to human colonies throughout the galaxy was simple but powerful. The sleeping giant had awakened, and it was angry. Fleet Admiral Chris Thompson stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, looking at the massive armada assembled around him. 500 human ships floated in formation, joined by vessels from 12 different alien species who had finally found the courage to fight their oppressors. The combined fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. "Admiral, we're receiving final confirmation from all fleet commanders," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Don Parker. "The Coalition is ready for the assault on the Zephyrian homeworld." Chris nodded as he watched the alien ships take their positions alongside the human vessels. The Altarians had brought their fast attack craft, the Vegans had contributed their heavy cruisers, and the Centaurians had provided detailed maps of the enemy's home system. After centuries of oppression, the galaxy was finally united against its tyrants. "How many ships are defending their homeworld?" Chris asked his intelligence officer. "Over 3,000 vessels, sir," came the reply. "But most of them are positioned in defensive formations around their orbital stations. They're not expecting an attack from multiple directions." Chris smiled. The Zephyrians were still thinking like the masters of the galaxy, assuming that any attack would follow traditional patterns. They had no idea that humans had spent months planning an assault that would use every dirty trick in the book. "Signal all ships," Chris ordered. "Begin Operation Endgame." The massive fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading for the Zephyrian homeworld, but they didn't travel together. Instead, they split into dozens of smaller groups that would arrive from different directions over the course of several hours. The humans had learned that surprise was their greatest weapon. Captain Beth Williams commanded the first wave of assault ships that dropped out of hyperspace near the outer edge of the Zephyrian system. Her ships were small and fast, designed to draw the enemy's attention while the main force prepared to attack. "All ships begin the harassment protocol," Beth ordered. "Hit their outer defenses and make them think this is the main assault." Her ships opened fire on the Zephyrian patrol vessels guarding the system's edge. The aliens responded exactly as the humans had predicted, calling for reinforcements and repositioning their fleets to counter what they thought was the primary attack. "They're taking the bait," Beth reported to Admiral Thompson. "Enemy ships are moving to intercept us." Meanwhile, the real assault force was approaching the Zephyrian homeworld from the opposite direction. Admiral Thompson watched as his ships moved into position around the heavily defended planet. "All ships, target the orbital defense platforms," he commanded. "We need to clear a path for the ground assault." The human ships opened fire with their kinetic weapons, sending streams of metal projectiles toward the alien defense stations. The Zephyrians returned fire with their energy weapons, filling space with deadly beams of plasma, but the humans had learned to fight differently. Instead of trading shots like gentlemen, they used hit-and-run tactics, attacking from unexpected angles and using asteroids and debris as cover. "Direct hit on Defense Platform 7, reported his tactical officer. "Their shields are down." "Good," Chris replied. "Signal the vegan cruisers to move in for the kill." The alien ships in the Coalition had been amazed by human tactical flexibility. They had never seen a species that could adapt their strategy in real time, changing their approach based on what was working and what wasn't. On the surface of the Zephyrian homeworld, Captain Beth Williams was leading the ground assault on the planetary capital. Her ships had broken through the orbital defenses and landed near the massive city where the alien leadership was hiding. "Remember, we're not here for genocide," Beth told her troops over the radio. "We target military installations and government buildings only. Civilians are not combatants." This was the crucial difference between humans and their enemies. The Zephyrians had planned to wipe out entire species, but the humans were fighting to liberate, not to destroy. The assault on the capital was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever experienced. Human soldiers moved through the city using urban warfare tactics that the aliens had never encountered. They used buildings for cover, coordinated their attacks through multiple radio frequencies, and adapted their plans based on resistance they encountered. "Squad leaders report," Beth commanded as her forces moved deeper into the city. "Squad 1 has secured the communication center," came the first reply. "No casualties." "Squad 3 has the transport hub," reported another voice. "Light resistance." "Squad 5 is approaching the government complex," said a third. "We can see Zephyrian officials evacuating." Beth smiled as she listened to the reports. The enemy's enhanced soldiers were no match for human tactical training and determination. The aliens were stronger and faster, but they had never learned to fight as a coordinated unit. "All squads, converge on the government complex," she ordered. "It's time to end this war." The final battle took place in the massive building where the Zephyrian High Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Beth led her soldiers through corridors filled with alien art and technology, heading for the central chamber where the enemy leaders were making their last stand. "This is Captain Williams," she announced over her loudspeaker as they approached the council chamber. "You are surrounded. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war." The response came in the form of energy weapon fire from the guards protecting the alien leaders. But the humans were ready for this. They had been practicing urban assault tactics for months. "Flash grenades," Beth ordered. "Smoke and move." The human soldiers coordinated their assault perfectly, using non-lethal weapons to disorient the enemy before moving in for the capture. Within minutes, the fighting was over and the Zephyrian leadership was in custody. "Admiral Thompson, this is Captain Williams," Beth reported over her radio. "The government complex is secure. We have the High Council in custody." "Excellent work, Captain," came the reply from space. "The orbital defenses have surrendered. The war is over." But ending the fighting was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, humanity faced the challenge of building a new galactic order. Ambassador John Clark arrived with a team of diplomats and legal experts to negotiate the peace treaty. "We're not here to replace the Zephyrians as galactic masters," John explained to the assembled representatives of dozens of species. "We're here to create a system where no single species can dominate the others." The negotiations were complex, but the result was revolutionary. The new galactic charter established a democratic council where every species had an equal vote. It banned weapons of mass destruction and created an international court to settle disputes peacefully. Most importantly, it included the human protection clause, which stated that any species attempting genocide would face the combined military might of the entire galaxy. This document ensures that what happened to the 17 extinct species will never happen again, John said as the treaty was signed. "We're creating a galaxy where diversity is protected, not eliminated." The ceremony was held on Earth, with representatives from over 100 species in attendance. As John watched the alien diplomats sign the charter, he reflected on how much had changed since that first intercepted transmission. Humanity had gone from being a target for extermination to being the leaders of galactic civilization. But they had used their power wisely, creating a system based on cooperation rather than domination. In the months that followed, human schools opened their doors to alien students, while human teachers traveled to distant worlds to share their knowledge. The galaxy began to heal from centuries of oppression under Zephyrian rule. Admiral Thompson, now retired, often visited the memorial that had been built to honor the 17 extinct species. The monument served as a reminder of what could happen. When fear and hatred were allowed to rule, they tried to eliminate us because they were afraid of what we might become, he would tell visitors. In the end, we became exactly what the galaxy needed, protectors of the innocent and defenders of freedom. The broadcast that had threatened to end humanity had instead lit a fire that burned away the old order. In its place rose a new civilization, based on the human ideals of justice, equality, and the right of all sentient beings to exist. The galaxy was finally free, and it was humanity that had shown them the way.